Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm coming to you from 6:30 p.m. because I'm in Calgary tonight. I'm going to be in Calgary for the next 4 months, so you're going to get this hotel room view, and we're going to make sure the Wi-Fi works well. I'm so happy to be here with our guest, Shawn Dejong, and our co-host. So we're going to jump right into our question the way we do. Sensei Dejong, what I wanted to ask you, based on some of the research we did around you and just some of the posts we put up, and I think it's a really good topic for everybody to talk about. One of the things about you talked about how you hate frivolous techniques. You don't handle or want to people to be learning frivolous techniques. What are frivolous techniques to you?
Yeah, so I'm not a small guy either. So when it comes to the techniques that I do, it's the stuff that works for me. And it's like when you're doing jujitsu, it's like it's going to go A to B, done. There's your demo techniques and the flashy stuff. I've always kind of steered away from it. It's always been more to the point, right? So.
And so then my question for you, and this is something I'd love to go around the horn on, is doing a classical martial art. There's always stuff that isn't hands-on. We're not just working a bag or pads. And arguably someone might say, well, if you're not being frivolous, you should just be doing that, just drilling in rounds. So how do you maintain the balance of a classical martial art with some of the moves that might not be apparent and making them effective A to B, go?
Well, all our traditional stuff is done through waza. So you have your first, second, third, fourth, and so on. Your waza going up. We practice those, and that is basically 75% of our classes. What we take out of that we call hanka, and that's your variations of what you would apply out in the street. So you take the principles you learn in those wazas and you apply them to street application. And yeah.
Right on. Let's pop around the horn a little on that. Let's go to you, Sensei Suino, because I know you're very familiar with that art. Is, how do you maintain the classical while not, doing things that don't matter?
Well, part of it starts with the system that you study. There are flashier and less flashier systems, and the real core ones are probably very practical because they descend out of actual martial validity. And you've heard me say this only somewhat short of infinity times: pressure testing. Pressure testing. I always say when we're working together originally, when we first start training a technique, that we're training, we're not fighting, so that we have to help each other understand the geometry, the physics, the feeling, the movements, working together. But if you live there forever, your technique is never going to have any validity. So you must go from that and constantly increase the pressure as long as you can take it without breaking down, and then keep going through that cycle until the technique starts being able to apply in what I call real-time jujitsu.
Right on. We're only 2 answers into this round the horn. I'm really excited about this conversation already. Sensei Dauphin, maintaining the classical without frivolity.
Well, I mean, the classical is the historical, right? And so that was the real world martial arts. I'm really happy that I do, my core arts are Legacy Sharon Ryu and Mukso Jigiden Ishinryu Iaido, which are both steeped in combat, like not. So I guess what I would say to you, Sean, is building on what Sensei Suino said, when you're pressure testing things, you learn really quickly what high percentage techniques are, right? Like by high percentage, I mean high percentage effective techniques.
Absolutely.
And then, you kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to try, like once you've got those high percentage techniques down, those are going to help you on the street. And then you get super creative with other things that are not quite as high percentage. And the elite martial artists can then take those things like, like Sensei Legacy once cracked me in the jaw with a jump spinning wheel kick that I wouldn't consider to be a high percentage technique. But man, if he would have hit anybody with that technique, they'd have been on their ass with a broken jaw, right? And that's because he drilled the high percentage techniques so much that then you get into the other ones and you make those work too. Last thing I just want to say about the style of Iaido we do, it's really direct and it's not flashy. And that I love that about it. It's just like you draw, you cut an arm off, then, or you cut a couple of arms off, you stab somebody, then with dignity, you put your sword away and back away. And there's a lot of carnage around you if you can kind of think of it that way, right?
Right.
Not a lot of spinning the sword above your hand, like spin it and like yelling things out and jumping around with it. Just kind of a lot of cutting and destroying.
Right on. And lastly to you, Hanshi, you know, maintaining a classical art, but making sure it doesn't have any flourish or bullshit it doesn't need. How do you balance that?
Well, if it's a classical art, it's been around for a long time. And usually it's been handed down several times, and it's been looked at by many different knowledgeable persons. So I would say that maybe sometimes some of the techniques that don't seem valuable are part of a bigger lesson, you know. So I would think that most things in the art over the years, like say karate, roughly 200 years old, since the days of Matsumura, etc. He would have all the masters, Itosu and everyone after him, would have put what they think was important there, and some people may not think it is. But you have to believe in your art, just sort of, and I hate to put this, but it's sort of like your religion. It's something that you believe in. And so you're there to train. It was there before you were there, and it's lasted this long. So I personally think that even the small lessons are good lessons.
Love that. And then one more idea I want to throw to Shihan Dejong before we get to our introductions is, you know, one of the posts that our team did as they were talking about you was showing you cutting in Iaido, and was just talking about, you know, it never being too late to start a new art. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I started Iaido with Sensei Dauphin. Was about last year, some point. It'll be over a year now.
Over a year.
On and off. But yeah, it started as more so for me to keep the hunger and the drive, right, and keep going, just forever learning, right, keeping crisp, whether it's in my wheelhouse or not. I'm just always looking for that knowledge. And you know, everybody can remember your first couple classes starting in martial arts, how, you know, you're just like, gotta go, right? So to keep that alive year after year after year, and, you know, decade after decade, and instructing, being in an instructing role, trying to keep that fire lit, that's my goal. Branching out, and the style of Iaido is very similar, and it really complements Hakko Denshin Ryu.
And then what would you say the greatest challenge is to starting a martial art older, and what would you say the greatest benefit is?
Well, again, the benefit is like keeping the fire lit, right? Keeping you excited, keeping you engaged. The downside is knees. but no, it's all good. I really enjoy it, and yeah, I'll keep going.
Right on. I'll go to you for that one, Sensei Dauphin. Starting a martial art older, and what do you think the main challenges and the benefit of doing it older is?
I'm gonna just like say what Sensei Legacy said. The greatest title you're ever gonna have is student. And sometimes if you train for a long time in your core art, it's hard to call yourself that, right? If you don't have a teacher, like when you go to something new, it's just easy to walk in the door and just say, I'm just a student. I don't know anything about this. I'm just going to give myself over to the training. Yeah. What Shihan Dejong said, like knees, neck, back, like it just, you know, I'm doing BJJ now for just over a year, and I feel it. Like kind of funny when I go in the change room and these guys are like, I'm getting too old for this. And they were saying that for a while. And then I'm like, hey man, how old are you? And they're like, I'm 38. I'm like, shut the hell up. I'm 51 years old. Like, shut up, you're 38.
Sensei Suino?
You know, I've been thinking about this, about starting a martial art when you're older, And one of the reasons maybe that we do it, yes, it's about the martial art. It's also about the people. I'm thinking about this a lot lately. Like, if I run into if I have this dream of studying a martial art and I run into somebody who's just not fun to be around, I'm not going to start, right? But if I really like the people involved, that makes all the difference in the world. Like the last thing I need is another martial art. I need like a hole in the head. But if I met somebody that was great to be with and I just loved it, that's how I interact with the world, right? Like half of what I do is martial arts. So it's a great way to meet new friends and punch them in the face. So anyway, I'm just saying that that's another vector, right? It's not just about learning new arts. It's also about relating to new people.
I love that. Hanshi Legacy, what about you? Starting arts when you're older, benefits, disadvantages?
Just, sometimes it's hard for me to come up, say the truth. It sounds so, it depends how old, okay? By older, what do you mean? 70, 25, or 45, so the expectations again would be of what you expect yourself to get from the martial art at that age. When I was like 21 or something, when I walked into a dojo, I had everything to further any, to push me through the martial arts. Whereas if you're going to train in a physical martial military art, you better be ready. You have a good sensei, you're either going to change or you're going to break. And somebody older doing what I did with Shorin Ryu, which was a lot of hand-to-hand combat. You have to sort of realize how old you are when you're doing martial arts. I mean, if you're going to do EI, like Master Yamaguchi or like Sensei Suino, it's a little bit different, just a little bit, because you're wielding a sword. It's not quite as rigorous on your body as hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, right. You can cut somebody in half at any age.
Yeah. Basically, yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to my introductions. My name's Shawn Benson. I'm one of your hosts. I'm here with Sensei Randy Dauphin, Sensei Nicolas Suino, and Hachi Gary Legacy. They're my instructors, they're my friends, they're my brothers. And between us, I think we're at 9 martial arts. And none of us are martial arts jumpers. Like, we're not style jumpers, but it's just through time and through life. I believe that's the number of boxes we take. I'm probably way off. I mean, it depends on how you want to think about it, but I was meditating on that right before. So this question came up beautifully based on Shawn Dejong's resume online that we've been putting out. And now to listen to what we know about him and who we're talking to tonight, I'm going to throw it to you, Sensei Dauphin.
Listen, I mentioned to Shihan Dejong that this is one of the first times I didn't actually methodically write down, which is why I'm not putting my glasses on, because I'm not reading something off of the screen while I'm talking about it. Shihan Dejong is a really good friend of mine. I'm really proud of the friendship that we've formed over the last, I guess, about a decade. We've known each other for about 10 years now. He's a 6th Dan in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and really good at it. Like, when I say really good at it, I mean, I defy you to go to his dojo and let him put his hands on you and you not feel the gravity of how strong his jiu-jitsu and his martial arts is. He's a very serious martial artist. We were introduced to him through Kyoshi James Freeze, the owner of Heritage Martial Arts. That was our first introduction. Sensei Legacy met him in Heritage Martial Arts as well, when Kyoshi Freeze was doing his Warrior Weekend, where he has all these great instructors come in, teach different arts. You get to train in all these different arts. It's an outstanding weekend. Through him, that's where we met Scott Taylor, another person who's been on this show. Sensei Dejong has had me to his dojo. I always consider that to be the highest compliment when an instructor will let you teach in their dojo. That's the highest compliment a teacher can give you. And I've had the privilege of teaching in his dojo 3, 4, 5 times now. We train together in Iaido. Sensei Dejong as well. His wife Tara is an outstanding human being. When we go there, it's always a good time. When Christine and I go down there, we always have fun. His students are very respectful. He does this this group training session where he gets these high-ranking people together and we all share the floor. It's not like a seminar per se. He gets these teachers in and we all just kind of share the floor with each other and share what our core arts are. It's an outstanding event. I want to say that Sensei Dejong's nickname amongst our group of people is the bringer of pain. That's how we call Sensei Dejong. He's shaking his head no. Man, he puts his hands on you, it just freaking hurts. I don't want to freaking, it fucking hurts so much.
Yeah, I love
It
it.
just hurts you so much. But in a loving way, and in a helpful way, and in a way that's helping you, right? And one thing that I've learned from him about jujitsu is if you can't deal with that pain, that's not the art for you. It mentally toughens you and physically toughens you. And if you can't deal with that, that's not the art for you. Really proud to be training with Sensei Dejong, and I'm looking forward to the next 3, 4, 5 decades together of doing cool shit, training together, going to different things. The world needs to know about this guy. This is a guy that martial arts needs today more than ever. The world needs to know about him. And if you're watching this, go to Sleepy Little Goderich, Ontario. It's a great community. Go there, go to his dojo. You're going to be learning some great Japanese martial arts when you go there. That's my introduction for this guy. I love this guy. I'm excited about this conversation.
Thank you, Sensei Dauphin. And if you know Sensei Dauphin, you know he does not say those things lightly. For everybody watching, who's watching a little later on YouTube, thank you for being here. Hit that subscribe and like button. If you're listening on the podcast while you're driving or baking, we're so happy you're here listening. Do the same, share with your friends. But for those of you watching in real time on Zoom, you get the chance to be part of this living history we've been creating. And ever since we hit our 100th episode, I felt things a little more deeply on the show. I just mean that I realized that we're actually doing what we set out to do, and you're part of that. So you definitely want to chime in on that chat button at the bottom of the screen when you have questions for our guest, Shawn Dejong. Shihan, let's throw it back to you right now. What was it like growing up for you, and what brought you into that first dojo?
Growing up, I have an older and younger brother, so you can imagine there's already a conflict there. I always had an interest, always dabbling in to see how I could get the upper hand with my brothers, right? But my introduction into martial arts would have been early 90s. I was at a friend asked me to go to a seminar in Stratford, and who turned out to be my instructor at this point. It's Soke Michael Lamonica from Akron, Ohio. And my friend said, you got to come down and see these guys. And I was like, yeah, okay. I was kind of hesitant. And so we drove to Stratford and we waited for, the seminar to start. And I just remember watching this gentleman walk down the hallway, gi hakama on. He's a big man. And I watched him walk in, and we went and sat in the seminar, and just his overall presence, and when he started doing techniques, how effortless it was and how much pain he could hold somebody in. And the moment he let him go, it was like they brushed it off. But just the control. And I was just at that point, it was like, I got to do that. And it was like I think it was the next Wednesday of the next week, I signed up, and it's been every week ever since for the last 26 years now.
So you knew night one.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you knew night one, everybody. Right? Yeah, we're all in the same company here. I love hearing that. So you mentioned Mike Lamonica. Who else was around? What was the vibe that kept you there? And aside from that ability to control and exert and then release the pain, what else was so attractive to you at that age?
The Japanese heritage around that art, the culture, how respectful everyone was with each other, training on and off the mat. The camaraderie was a big part of it. And, I really enjoyed that. And the guys you get to train around with over the years, some come, some go, but I've had a lot of really good instructors. One of my co-instructors here at the dojo now, Shihan Glen Archambault, was one of my original instructors, and I'm thankful enough to still have him here with me at this dojo instructing. So it's pretty cool having him here.
Yeah, if you don't know Shihan Glen, he can fuck you up really good too.
And he does.
I think that's a fun one, because like I'm in the car world, and with Porsches, and I know Hanshi and Sensei with the motorbikes, you'll say the same. Like the best part of these vehicles is the people you meet around them, the community, and how important. And this is something I want to go around the horn on, but I'll start with you, Shawn Dejong. How important is keeping, like, we're in North America doing what are effectively now North American martial arts. They've been here long. So why is the Japanese culture around it important?
Well, for me, where it came from, it's paying honor to where it came from, the heritage around that, and the purity of it, I think, is a big part. Like all our was in the dojo here is still all written in Japanese. All the students learn it in Japanese. All our terminology we use in the dojo is all in Japanese. And I think it's just a wonderful art. You take any of them that are coming from Japan and you look at how they're put together and the whole big picture of it. And they're beautiful art forms outside of twisting somebody up. It's a beautiful thing.
Right on. I'll jump to you, Sensei Suino. You're right next to him on my screen, and I feel like you can speak to this pretty specifically, having trained in Japan almost exclusively for 4 years, and then you come back, and so you get to see both sides so clearly in your career.
So can you specifically ask the question again?
Specifically, if we're in here, you're spending more of your time in your career training in Michigan. Why isn't it Michigan culture? Why is the Japanese culture important?
Well, this is the fertile ground, the petri dish out of which grew the Japanese martial arts, and the cultural aspects are part and parcel of it. You can't anymore train in karate or jujutsu or judo without doing something that's Japanese culture, whether it's the bow or the language we use or the stylistic stuff, the philosophical outlook. It's all built into it, and the more thorough your knowledge, the more of that soaks through. I had a guy, I've told this story before, but I had a guy, John Ray was a guy that went and studied Iaido in Japan and lived there for a long time like I did. He did it a little before I did. He came up to Ann Arbor once and visited my dojo, and he said to my students, he said, look, pay attention to how Suino Sensei moves, how he does Iaido, but also what he says, his pauses, the nuance, right? The atmospherics around it. He goes, that's the stuff that he learned from his sensei. And that's what makes this a valid experience, that it's a traditional Japanese martial art because of the whole ethos around it.
Love that. I'll end with you, Sensei Dauphin. Hanshi Legacy. How important is the actual Japanese culture to making this something that matters?
Well, it's history, it's history to start with. And I think what really happens there is most North Americans are pinned against nature, and whereas martial arts in the East sort of locks you up with nature. So sometimes Westerners who join martial arts, they sort of have their first Zen experience. They start, everything that you're doing in martial arts sort of lines you up with the rest of nature. And I think that comes back from the East, and the roots are so deep in the martial arts. That's probably where we ourselves, not necessarily being able to beat another guy up, but in all the good benefits that we gain from that, proper things, respect for nature, animals, men, women, everything like that. I think it goes a lot deeper than just stepping on the floor and rolling around with somebody or punching somebody in the eye.
Yeah, and you talk about that in your book, right? You
I
get-
believe.
I really enjoyed that, reading that in your book. Sensei Dauphin, I know you're a history buff, so I wanted to kind of end on you.
Well, you said about the vehicles, I just want to correct that. Like, I've met a lot of assholes, but I like their motorcycle. They were little dick, but
That's
they
awesome.
had a really nice bike. So, but it's funny you say that because, what's one of the things you like about Porsches? It's the history of Porsche. What do I like about Harley Davidson? It's the history of the Harley Davidson and where that comes from. What do I don't have like a really strong family history. I can't trace my lineage back like this far, but anybody who joins, let's quote Fumio Demura. Sensei Demura said, everybody who's ever done karate is my family, even you guys. That's what he said, right?
Mhm.
And what's important about a history of Japan, it connects all of us to a lineage that goes back like a really long way. And we can all proudly stand up and puff our chest out and go, hey, I'm in Matsumura's lineage. Hey, I'm in Yamaguchi's lineage. Hey, right? And all the other people who join the dojo, we all get to be family in that way. And then obviously it's just really good that it's got hundreds and hundreds of years of being able to kick somebody's ass. I like that too. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thing I'd like to add there is that also each time we introduced our senseis, we're really proud of our lineage. We don't realize it just when Shawn was just telling us who his sensei was. He was really proud of his lineage and who you guys were that trained with. And that's part of that. Goes right back. The proud, well, I can't say the more proud you are, how far back your lineage goes, but everybody thinks their own lineage is, it's like your family, right?
Love that. Yeah, I just want to chip in real quick. I don't chip in as much when it's not a host chat, but I needed something that was of a different time and place. Like when I found karate, there was something that was like, I needed something that wasn't Guelph, Ontario, or wasn't Western. Like those are good places, but I always had this yearning for something that had more to it. And when I saw, it's funny you mentioned the Hakama Shihan Dejong, a photo of Hanshi Legacy before I'd met him in his Hakama. I just said, I don't know what that is, but I want to be a part of it. And then the reality of the man and the art was actually much better than that photo. Let's get back to you. You find these arts, you're going to train them for life. What's the next couple of years of your young man path training?
Well, I still have like a lot of my own training in this particular art that I can do yet. And then obviously I've got my feet into Iaido now, and I want to keep going with that because I'm really enjoying it. Staying fit, staying active and healthy, and keep training the students and trying to find that elusive student to take over the art someday. That's a big one.
Well, fuck, let's go right at that. I do want to go back to your younger years, but let's go. That's a huge concept you just introduced. So you don't currently have an obvious designate, or?
I have a lot of good students. They're top-notch students. But yeah, that, to pass on the art to the next generation, it's always the big one, right? It's does the next generation want it? It's always the big question. I'm sure all of you guys can speak on that. But yeah, that's a big one for me. They put a lot of time and passion into it, and you want to pass that on like a sword going through the generations, right? Keep it sharp, take care of it, and pass it on to the next generation.
Well, let's start with you on that one, Hanshi Legacy. What do you look for? What do you think about? What did it feel like when things were passed to you in terms of that student who will carry on the art, or students? How do you see that?
Geez, I have a hard time with that. I'm just gonna pass. I don't know what to say, really. I mean, Randy's here and a bunch of things. I'm just gonna pass on them.
Right on. Well, let's go to you then, Sensei Dauphin. You know, you and I have had conversations even when we clock some of those young students in your club, and I know you feel at least good that the future's covered, but what are you thinking about when you're looking at that next generation?
Well, I don't know if the future's covered. Like, I hope it is. Like, I mean, but I mean, today is today, right? Like tomorrow, you don't know how the world's going to get turned upside down on you. But I mean, if things keep going in the direction, if you're charting the course, I feel okay. But it's a big responsibility, right? Like when your teacher says to you, you got this, carry it forward. Then you're like, okay, I can carry it forward, but one day I'm going to die. And who am I going to pass it along to that's going to carry it forward too, right? That's,
Yep.
to me,
Yeah.
that's ever present in my mind now, right? Is making sure that I can happily become a picture on a wall, right? And know that I'm on that, I'm a picture on a wall because I'm someplace where somebody's passing it forward, and they're going to someday become a picture on a wall. Yeah, I don't know. And then I guess another thought I have is just, I've said it before, every student who comes in the door, they could be the best martial artist the world has ever seen. And if you're teaching martial arts, you got to look at it that way. You gotta, and that greatness can kick in at different times. The one who's a pain in the ass when they walk in the door for the first 2 years, you got to hang with them because they can become the one who's going to be like, I don't know, the next Jigoro Kano or the next Funakoshi or the next Bruce Lee. They can be that person. And as a teacher, you have to have that optimism for all of them when they come in.
Love that. Sensei Suino, what about you? Do you give much thought to who's going to run the shop one day and what that person needs to possess?
A lot of thought. Listen, I've been kicking around a long time and I've seen a lot of failures in that department. And that's what got me started about that, is that I've seen leaders of big dojos and leaders of systems who do not admit their mortality and they're not thinking about the next generation. And I could go through some lists, but I don't really want to throw names, but there's some big martial artists who have had big organizations in Japan and in North America, and they've let it go. The ones that do it successfully, you know, look at Shotokan martial art, Shotokan karate, look at judo, right? Depending on which branch of aikido you look at, right? They have succeeded in figuring out how to maintain the succession. As a result, those martial arts have grown. But the ones that didn't often end up being fractured. That you have 2 or 3 or 7, you know, high-level black belts all fighting over who said, oh, the sensei liked me best. And then you get fracturing, disagreements. Even in a small dojo, if you don't say, if the old guy or gal doesn't say, hey, listen, you're next, here's all that works, here's what you need to maintain, then you risk losing it all. And I think we put too much work into this. I started thinking about it 15 years ago. I'm thinking about it more than ever, how I scale myself out before I die and scale other people in so the roles are all set. I don't know if I'll make it because I don't know when that day's coming, but I am thinking about it very deliberately. I'm cultivating people for it, and I'm trying to put all the pieces in place, not just for me, but the next generation. And I want to give them the skill set to be doing what I'm doing much sooner than I did so that the organization can grow and keep it alive. So yeah, I think that's my most important job right now.
Right on. I don't mind naming names because to me it's not a negative, but I know that when I trained with Hidetaka Nishiyama in Los Angeles, he hadn't built up the next generation leader. The students were incredible. He was incredible. But to my knowledge, that dojo doesn't still run because that when he passed, it passed. And yeah, that is a shame because of what he was doing there. Something's been lost for sure. Shihan Dejong, long before you cared about any of this, you're a young man, you're training. Talk us through those early years, your challenges, what other art exposures looked like, you know, just tell us about yourself during that time.
So when I started jiu-jitsu?
Well, yeah, and those first number of years before you were an instructor, when you were just hacking it out and training your ass off, what did that look like and what did it feel like? And talk us through into your, you know, 20s and 30s.
Who was in the dojo with you besides Glen?
Oh boy, a lot have come and gone. Yeah, when you get to where you are now, there's so many that have come and gone. But I had the privilege of training with a lot of really, really good people over the years. And I think that's why I'm where I'm at today. You know, you have an good uke is a good training partner throughout the years. But when I started, it was in Goderich here. And we'd go twice a week. And I never really strayed away from this art. I always stayed with the Hakko Denshin Ryu. It really appealed to me. I liked it. It fit good with me, and I stuck with it. And I put everything I had into it. So it was like when I started, you'd have your day job, you go through it, but so much of my day was consumed with class that night. What are we doing class Thursday night? What are we doing next week? And I remember doing, my paperwork at my job and flip it on the backside, and to be writing out in Japanese, different attacks and different chokes and stuff I could, try and figure out at class the next time, or how to call stuff out, or going through the body parts, Japanese body parts, and learning the body through and through, right? So that was my early on years. I was just invested in this particular style. And it's going to seminars later on, the Warrior Weekend, and getting my eyes opened up all the other stuff that's out there was it's brilliant. And meeting Sensei Dauphin and Sensei Freeze and all those other really top-notch instructors I really got my eyes open, because my focus was just on one particular for a long time. Yeah.
Hey, Shawn, listen, Benz, let me,
Yeah.
Shihan Dejong, in your art in Jiu-Jitsu,
Yes.
I know you, Soke Lamont, you have, and Shihan Glen, like I know, but who are other people in that art that you really look up to, and why? Why are you looking up to them? Like, Shihan Evans, or other people, like, I know you've got a list of people that you've trained with that you really look up to. Yeah. So drop
Shihan
some
Evans is now.
names, brother.
Sorry, I talked on you there.
I said drop some names, brother.
Oh yeah. So our affiliated dojo, and I believe they're in Livonia. They used to be in Ann Arbor. They're in Livonia now. Shihan Scott Evans, who is now taking the role of our technical director for Hakko Denshin Ryu. Just top-notch guy. He is really good at what he does, and there's a reason why he's in that role. Just recently received the rank of Hanshi overseas at a Taikai from one of our directors. So I'm pretty proud of him about that. And then he's got a handful of guys that are underneath him, Jason Spirico and Joel Reynolds, all Shihans. They're just really good guys. So we get to see them, a couple times a year. It'd be nice if it was more, but we get to train with those guys. And now that I know that there's other dojos, Sensei Suino down that way, it'd be good to start making trips other places as well.
Sensei Evans, I think, was a student of Sensei Suino's for a while.
Yeah, there's a link there. Yep.
Yeah, that's a really cool full circle. I might add that, unless I'm mistaken, he's on this call right now too. So that's a cool reunification. He and I haven't seen each other in a long time, but we spent many hours on the mat together.
Love that. So before we get to a question that came in, I wanted to just ask you, tell us more about your art. Tell us about where it came from, what the name means. Just help everyone understand what you're doing who doesn't know, because I don't actually know that derivation of what it is either.
Okay, so Hakko Denshin Ryu came from Hakko Jujutsu. From I believe it's Omiya, Japan, is where it was based out of. And now we studied under Soke Lamonica out of the US. He was military police officer his whole life. So a lot of the stuff that he took from when he trained in Japan had a real law enforcement backing to it as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got a little ping there. So then the question that we have from ZT or ZT,
ZT.
let me know if I'm getting that wrong. Is honor in martial arts obedience to the people of the past, or is it understanding why the people of the past did and said what they did, or is it something else entirely?
What? Look at CT out here. Good question. She's a student of mine. That's why I'm so happy. She's
Awesome.
she's quiet in person, but
Well-
she carries some authority.
Great. Well, if she's an American, we know it's ZT, not ZT.
ZT.
So what do you think, Shawn Dejong? Is honor in martial arts obedience to the people of the past? Is it understanding why they did and said what they did, or is it something else?
Oh, definitely, for sure. And to the people present. But yeah, for sure. Like the founders of all the particular arts. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sensei Suino, since that question excited you to no end, what is honor in the martial arts? Is it obedience to the past, to the people? What is it?
Well, I like that distinction that ZT drew, which is it honoring the people of the past, or is it paying attention to the things that they did and the reasons they did them? Isn't it both? Without the people of the past, we couldn't do what we do today. There'd be no history. But if we do it blindly, without understanding the reasons why we do it, then it's just dance. It's kabuki, right? You got to understand why we revere the people that came before us. What did they give us? What are the tools that they gave us that made it possible for us to do what we do today? It's a really intelligent question.
Right on, Hanchi Legacy. I see you agreeing with Sensei Suino a bit there. What do you think about honor and what it means to acknowledge the people from the past versus the present?
Honor, it's really a simple thing in my books. Honor is really a simple thing. That's probably why people have a hard time being honorable. And that's to be honorable and that's why we learn to defend and to teach, is to just do what's right. A lot of times, I'll just use an example, somebody may want to do something to somebody else, and because they're your friend, you excuse that. But being honorable would be to tell him or her that that's wrong, and I'm not going to do that. And that's why the shoguns always picked a man of honor to lead their troops, in my opinion. Well, it's an everyday going on thing. It's not something. It's something you, with the martial arts, I believe, helps you be stronger mentally, physically, and spiritually to stand up for what is right, as opposed to, say, fashionable.
Thanks, Hanchi. Sensei Dauphin, where do you go with this idea of honor, obedience with the past, the hows and whys of the past versus the present?
Not obedient to the past. I respect it, but I live today. So I'm not sure about that. And my honor comes from my teachers, not from the past. Their honor comes from their teachers. Like I wouldn't stand here and say, oh, Matsumura makes me an honorable martial artist. Like, I don't know him. Like, I'm not sure. And it was a different time and place. There was no electricity then. Right. So, but I respect him tremendously, and I respect everything he did in martial arts. Mostly I respect his lifetime of martial arts. I mean, honor to me is something that is, people will have different opinions on that. You'll find people who will say, oh, Randy Dauphin is not an honorable person, and other people who would defend my name till their last dying breath. But it comes from today for me. Right. And it's about your actions. Do your actions and words align? And I guess that kind of builds on what Sensei Legacy said, right? Like, are you, Shawn, you and I, we've had tough conversations in our past, right? I've had tough conversations. I just had a tough conversation with Sensei Suino on the weekend where he said, like, you need to do this shit in your Iaido way better, right? Honor is that I came here by myself after, and wrote that stuff on that whiteboard and did my Iaido by myself, working towards those corrections that were given to me to try and make it better, right? Nobody saw me do it. I just did it.
Mm.
That's the type of person I want to be.
Right on. Yeah, I don't personally think too much about the past when it comes to honor. I actually think something, Hanshi, you said this in the first year of karate that I was doing it, where you talked about everybody who's like, I'm going to do karate forever. I'm going to get a black belt, Hanshi, when they've taken karate for like 2 weeks. And I'm sure you remember your own 2-word answer. Show me. I've never forgotten that. And I failed at it often in terms of trying to show, not say. I'm real good at talker and half as good at doing, but to me, the honor is in showing, not talking about it. Shihan Dejong, you talked about how you have this strict dedication to this art, which everybody on this call gets and admires. What was the most, I don't know, expansive or challenging or interesting thing you found when you started to meet this cadre of other martial artists, like you're talking about with Sensei Dauphin, where you're like, oh, there's more out there that's, valid and worthwhile. What were there any surprises? Is there anything you want to share about that opening up into different engagements?
It's okay, Shihan Dejong, if you say you don't want me to punch you. It's okay if you want to say that.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I like my nose where it is. No, the Iaido is particular for me is because a lot of our waza is set up where it's anytime a samurai would be unable to draw his sword, right? A lot of our stuff comes from people hanging onto the arms and obviously stopping them. The Iaido, even just hanging on to a bokken, and the techniques that come with it, it really comes hand in hand with our style already of jiu-jitsu. I like it. But yeah, all the other stuff, the karate, watching like Sensei Freeze do kata, for example, there's so much in there that I can pick out that I'd go, right? That's kind of like where a was is, but that person's not there, right? So you can kind of see the similarities from art form to art form to art form coming out of Japan for sure. If that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah. And then, so let's, not just Iaido, but what about the Warrior Weekends in general, as you're getting exposed to a broader community?
Yeah, when's the last time we were at that one? That's been a few years since we were at one, COVID and everything. But yeah, one of the biggest aha moments I had was with Scott Taylor, actually, because all his jiu-jitsu he does on the ground is all Japanese based, which is really interesting because the BJJ takes such a big spotlight of the grappling world, and to see him come in there and he's kind of like this missing link that that he was another one at the Warrior Weekend when when you see I believe he was there, was he not? Sensei Dauphin was Scott at one of them?
I don't know, Shihan. He always seems like we've all been around each other now for so long. I can't.
Yeah, they kind of melt together.
Yeah.
So then I want to go around the horn on that idea of aha moments, because, and also with us hosts, I mean, doing this show, we've been exposed to such a broad array. So I see you nodding there, Sensei Suino. So, what's been, and not just with our show, but like we've talked a lot about how up until the internet generation, martial arts could be pretty sequestered from each other. So in your lifetime, what's been the biggest aha moment as you got exposed to other martial artists and other arts that you didn't necessarily do?
Man, I find that a difficult question to answer. There's been so much learning forever from 1968 to today in martial arts. And then, as you said, like in the dawn of the internet era, all the other stuff I've been able to see. I've been lucky enough to train in a lot of martial arts, either casually or for decade upon decade. I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
Right. I may come back to me. I may come up with something.
Okay, look, the longer my beard gets, the tougher the questions get.
100%.
Yeah, they're proportional. Sensei Dauphin, what about you? You know, arts you're not training in, but martial artists you meet in other arts. What's the biggest aha moment?
I can't say the biggest. That's I'm not sure. I've been in martial. I'd be disrespectful to a lot of people that I've trained with. You know, recently I can remember being in Japan with Sensei Suino and Sato Sensei above that gas station, and he and I were going back and forth. And you know, I gotta be honest, I haven't done a lot of Japanese jiu-jitsu or aikido or things like that. And I don't want to say I'm skeptical, but you know, if you don't do something, sometimes you have some skepticism. But with Sato Sensei, like we were doing these throws and he was just explaining this. I can't even explain it properly, but just this casual way of like moving your body. And when we were doing it, like Sensei Suino and I were just kind of laughing because it was working like 100%. And I was like, yeah, that was right outside of my frame of reference. Like, had I never gone there and done that with that. So that's a bit of an aha moment. My first night in the dojo was an aha moment.
Right.
Like, you know, I walked in as an 18-year-old guy who thought he was super tough and figured out super fast that I was not, right? When I watched like, you know, female black belts and people like, and I was just looking at them going, all these people would destroy me if that's a bit of an aha moment, right? When you figure out where you're not, where you think you are, but not actually in that place. Which again is like recently, like you go into a BJJ dojo with a guy who's like 10 years, 20 years younger than you. And you're like, I kind of got this. No, I don't. Like the next thing you know, you're seeing stars, you're getting choked unconscious, right? Like, yeah. Anytime you get to figure out like where you actually are in comparison to where you think you are, that's an aha moment, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I love that. I'm gonna write that one down. Hanshi Legacy, you know, I started the question sort of thinking about as we encounter martial artists who were not familiar with their art, what are aha moments? But go anywhere you want with it.
well, if he doesn't say the thing that's an aha moment for him, I'll remind him what an aha moment was.
When I was a green belt,
Yeah.
I was the first day I met Benny Allen. I sort of made a couple of comments at him he didn't like. So he just walked over and he put his hand on my chest and just flattened me right out on. It just laid me right out on the ground. My feet went up over top of my head. That was my discovery of the power of softness. That was like, I can still feel that now. But another thing maybe off of that a little bit was when I knelt at Matsumura and Itosu's graves. That to me is what we were talking about earlier, about reaching back into that history and, you know, the minds that that help build it all up and push it forward from one person to the next. You know, when you go back in that line as far as you can to the actual guys, that was quite a memorable moment for myself. Randy and I were there together, by the way.
Just to chip in on that, I think my biggest aha moment meeting more martial artists who do things I don't do is how many good martial artists there are out there. Like how many people are training really fucking hard at an art that's subtly different or greatly different. And you're like, oh yeah, they care as much as we do. And they're working as hard as we are. Now there's as many who aren't, but I'm shocked how many are. And I'm like, wow, there's just a lot of good guys, even if they're boxers and they're just working their hands. And you're like, that's a really good martial artist right there that I'm watching at my gym. And his bag work is sublime. And you wouldn't know it to look at him, just like you never know who's standing in front of you.
How was it when you tried to hold your elbows against your side when you were rolling with Madison? How was that?
It was impossible. My hand moved where he wanted it to move. Wherever he wanted my arm, it went. That was a aha moment. Shihan Dejong, where do you go with that? The last thing I said, you were sort of agreeing with which part. What resonates for you there in terms of the other martial artists being either good or bad or just or not?
Well, I'm gonna go back to your aha moment for a second. The when I first met Hanshi Legacy was at the Warrior Weekend, was at Driftwood, and I remember, sir, walking up to you after our segment, and you came up to me and you shook my hand and you said, "Very nice. That was you guys are the real deal," and it was a real honorable moment for me when you said that. And I just remember looking down at your hand when I was shaking your hand, thinking, how many people has this guy hit?
All of them.
I just
I thought you guys said something else.
no. I was like, wow. If anybody's ever shaken his hand, then you know it's
Okay, I've got a question for you here from Sensei Conroy Copeland, friend of the program, as close as it gets. Sensei Dejong, which partner do you consider has the most important role when partner training? Is it Shite or Uke?
repeat that one more time.
Which partner do you consider has the most important role when partner training?
I think for us, you have your Tori and your Uke, right? So they both play equal role in that. That when you're teaching or when you're learning it or you're receiving it in jiu-jitsu, like, I mean, you're obviously feeling it when you're having it done to you and you're learning that way, and when you're doing it to somebody, right? And having somebody that you can train with, that's not like, especially with walls, and they're not resistant, and they're hard to work with. That could really stump any student. But I would say it's 50-50 role. They're both very important.
Right on. That's not a super long question. I'd like to go around the horn on that. Sensei Suino?
Both critical.
Yeah.
But the ebb and flow can be different depending on what you're doing, who's more senior, what you're trying to emphasize. Any two-person martial art, I think, I dare say karate, 100%. I'm sure Japanese jiu-jitsu, BJJ, judo, it varies, but at the end of the day, you can't have one without the other.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy?
I agree. Gotta have two legs. Same thing.
Sensei Dauphin?
I'm just gonna say I don't think the Uke gets enough credit for their role in helping people learn and develop. I don't ever want to train with a shitty Uke if I'm trying to learn something. You need a really good Uke, and I think we're all teachers here. Who do you call up to help you demonstrate something? You call the best Uke up you possibly can get to show something to a group of people. You're not gonna call up the crappiest Uke. So it is definitely a symbiotic relationship, but I think there's more good Tores than there are Ukes. I think there's, proportionately, there's less good Ukes.
Yeah, I love that question. I don't think we talk about that enough on the show. It's a good one. Shihan Dejong, guess what time it is? 9:30. For me, it's 7:30. That means 10 questions. All our guests, 10 questions. We ask that you answer as impulsively as you can, but then flesh out your answer if you wish. You ready?
Sure, let's go.
What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
Chikigami.
So explain to everybody what the hell that is.
I was just gonna say, tell the guy what that is.
A very effective wrist lock, which we practice a lot over a lot of years.
Right on. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
That would be Soke, Michael J. Lamonica.
Who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Oh, There's too many. I can't answer that directly with one. No.
Sorry, not who, but what excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
The students, finding those core students to bring up through and have them, take that next level. Yep.
Do you have a favorite film and television martial artist, whether they're even legit martial artists or not?
I like the John Wick movies. Pretty good.
Sorry, Ben, you still have not got anybody to say you. We've been doing this now for 102 episodes. And nobody.
I gotta throw more kicks on camera. This is bullshit. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
Wow, that was a deep one. What do I want to say when I get there? Welcome, you did good.
Is there a martial artist, living or dead, in all of our recorded history you'd want to train with the most?
Yeah, I'd love to train with the founder of our art, Ryo Okoyama, who's the man, the guy that designed Hakko Jujutsu. I think that would be pretty cool.
If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would they be getting?
The discipline and the self-confidence.
Awesome.
Yep.
The last two questions come as a pair. Greatest achievement, greatest regret.
Greatest achievement would have been this dojo. Being able to get to this pinnacle where I have my instructor with me and still being able to teach and having a dojo and passing the art on. And what was the second part?
Greatest regret?
Not starting sooner. I wish I'd caught a hold of this when I was 15.
Yep. By the way, we were chatting before the show started, and Shihan showed us his dojo. It is stunning in there. And Sensei Dauphin said it best. It's the dojo from the Matrix. It's just, I can't wait to come and meet you and train there.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
I appreciate that. Sensei Suino, you got an aha moment you want to go back to, or should we just move on?
I do have many. There's one I'll share, but after I share that, I want to revisit the greatest martial artist of all time question with Sensei Dejong. I know he has a list, so I want to pull a few of those out. So I'm not letting him get away with that with the non-answer. I've had many aha moments. One of them I remember really fondly. I was just talking about that with some folks at JMAC tonight. They had a what do you want to call it? Like a Chinese cultural exhibit here in Southeast Michigan. And among the exhibits was a guy doing Tai Chi. And it was this, if you were going to cast a guy as the old Tai Chi master in a movie, he would be perfect. He was this old, long beard, skinny Chinese guy wearing the white, the white Tai Chi outfit and the shoes. And, I was a young punk, I don't know, 28 years old, full of myself, hadn't been from Japan. I watched him and I'm like, that skinny fucker, like, what could he do? And then later on, I had an opportunity to go up to him and kind of cross hands with him. And it was just sick. Like the amount of physical power the guy could generate from, I have no idea where, like his power sources to me at the time were invisible. It was just such an aha moment. Like I knew better, right? Intellectually, I knew better. Like he wouldn't have been up there and the people wouldn't have been revering him the way they did if he didn't have some shit. But I went up there and crossed arms with him and I'm like, holy crap, this guy can deliver some power. And he looked like, he was like 4'11" and he looked like he weighed about 110 pounds. and he looked like he was about 100 years old. And I was just flabbergasted when I realized there were levels to this stuff. So that was one of many aha moments.
Before we go back to what you're talking about, let's pin down Shihan Dejong on a few greats. But have you figured out since? Because you said I didn't know his power source at the time.
Well, I don't have a deep understanding of Chinese martial arts, but a good friend of mine that I trained with for many years in Ann Arbor went and lived in Taiwan for 6 years and trained with a really famous internal Chinese master named Lo Shu. And this kid, this friend of mine, he left and he was like this 18-year-old knucklehead in every sense of the word. He was gone for 6 years and he came back and he was now a 24-year-old knucklehead and he could kick your ass. And he had so much power. He had spent his time well, studied with this guy, and the way he moved was crazy, but I got more opportunity to be in the room with him, to feel his power surge, to watch how he did it. And I kind of understand, if you think of Bagua, you think of like that spiral that they do, right? When the hips are turning and they bend one knee and they kind of roll in. A lot of that stuff, it's just there's kind of a spiral that comes up from the ground. Now, that's me saying it. There's a big difference between me saying it and being able to reproduce it. But I understand a little bit better now than I did back in a long time ago when the dinosaurs still roamed the earth.
Well, Sensei Suino, why don't you throw your questions toward Shihan Dejong about those grades?
All right, Sensei Dejong, if you won't give us one greatest martial artist of all time, who's a few people on your list?
Well, it's more a little close to home and current because I've been in the bubble for so many years and it just focused on my art and my instructors. But right now, I have some really close friends, Sensei Dauphin, Sensei James Fries, even Hanshi Legacy. I've never, I've been on the mat with them, I think twice through seminars, once at Sensei Dauphin's dojo. And to me, to see that right in front of me, those techniques and what those guys can do, and they're, how physically fit these guys are is pretty cool. Like yeah.
Well, that's the first time anybody's accused Hanshi Dauphin of Randy Dauphin of being the greatest martial artist of all time, but I'll give him some. I think that's pretty nice.
I endorse this answer fully. Hanshi and Sensei, I'm down. There's a reason I keep driving down the road to see them.
Love it.
We got some questions for you, Shihan Dejong. So we have one more question from ZT. Thanks for chiming in, ZT. It's nice to meet you this way. I like this question a lot. It's come up in different ways, but tonight we'll go with you, Shihan Dejong. In your opinion as a sensei, at what level do you think it's beneficial for a lower rank to get more exposure to different arts or techniques from seminars or training in multiple arts? And when is it a bad idea and can be overwhelming?
I think, thanks for your question, ZT. I think it's good for a student to focus on one art and basically find a good instructor. That's the first thing. And focus on one art and get the basics down. Get your stances, get your legs underneath you, and have a somewhat of a core. And then by all means, see what's out there. There's no harm in it at all. But yeah, I highly suggest to have your basics down and then look and branch out and see the world and martial arts.
Right on. We're going around the horn on that one. Hanshi Legacy, how early is it too early, in your opinion, to check out other arts or things beyond that singular art?
Well, you know me, right? Well, I personally believe that you should have your art that you're going to dedicate your life to. Because if you don't, then when other people fall aside, who's going to be left? Somebody has to do that. The people who are cross-training, that's good. That's all good. But who do they go to? They go to the guys who really know a lot about one style to get the best techniques out of it. So how can they really judge what if they're not really masters of that style, how can they really judge what's important and what's not? So I'm not saying that doing different arts, I do a couple of different arts, but you should do them at the proper time and not abandon your original who you are to try to put on somebody else's mask or costume. You need to wear your own. Okay, so I myself am a Shawn Ryu practitioner, and that's what everybody will ever know me that I am. I also do EI with Sensei Suino, but that's something that I do for myself on the side, and I really respect that art. So, but I'm the one art type of a guy. Be as good as you can be at one thing. That'll take care of all things. Because when you switch arts, then you're over there, then you're wondering what the hell's going on over there. And there are just so many different arts. You can train so damn hard and really not learn that much about one thing.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Suino, I see you nodding a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've touched on this subject a little bit before. I mean, even if you're going to get into other arts, spend the time with one, spend the first year with one, have a core art, like Hanshi just said, that you come back to. Core thematic movements, you have to do more than understand them in your head. They have to become a part of who you are. They have to be woven into your skeleton. And that takes a lot of practice, a lot of thinking. Even we have evidence. A lot of the greatest UFC fighters are guys that started one martial art. And even though they learned a bunch of stuff, they're doing MMA, they have a basis in something, karate, wrestling, right? BJJ, something that they have pursued most of their life, and they've kind of added the other skills around it. If you really want to be good, you got to have a core martial art.
Yep. Sensei Dauphin.
Well, like Sensei Legacy, I'm a Shawn Ryu guy, like, period. Like, if you strip everything else away, that's what I am. But so to answer your question specifically, I agree with Sensei Dejong. Like, you need to have you shouldn't even be contemplating another martial art until you have like solid basics, a good understanding. And not only would I say solid basics, but you have an understanding of how to apply those basics. Like, it's one thing to punch and kick the air or do something, but so in here in Legacy Shawn Ryu, I think that you shouldn't even be contemplating other martial arts or a weapon or a ground game until you're at least a green or a purple belt, right? Like, by the time you're a green or a purple belt, at least in Legacy Shawn Ryu, I know the standards are different, but you fight a green belt in Legacy Shawn Ryu, you're probably, and you've never done martial arts before, you're probably going to get your ass kicked, right? Because the green belts in our dojo are already tough. Like, that's not a gimme rank. You're an intermediate student by the time you get a green belt. So then after that, I think you need to contemplate why you want to try another martial art. Like, what is the reason why you want another art? Like, right? Okay, I do Iaido. Well, that's a weapon art. The strategies in Shawn Ryu and the strategies in Isshin Ryu are very similar. When I hear Sensei Suino talk about strategies of Iaido, they're very similar to what Sensei Legacy says about strategies of fighting. But I feel no need to go do Muay Thai. I feel no need to go do something that's basically very similar to Shawn Ryu, right? So if you're going to try another thing, you should be trying something that's kind of different than what you're doing. If you're just going to go do something that's the same, why? Like, what's the point of that, right? So that's my thought about it.
Yeah, I know this question comes up. I don't get tired of it because I need to hear it. The one thing that I just want to add, ZT, is that I learned how to learn through the pathway of the martial arts. Like, if I had just done a year of Shawn Ryu and a year of something else, it would still be the same guy who started 10 years later learning the way that guy knew how to learn. But it was the time in that changed how not just how I move or do things, but how I learn. It literally changed how I process and practice and grow. And if I'd been able to move teachers and not be held to account, by my teacher and not be held to account by the art, like do it again, do it a little better, do it again. It would have been real easy to hide in the corners of who I was instead of being laid bare by the thing. So that for me is a big thing. Like, it's not just about the art or the style, but having that teacher to whom I'm accountable, who knows all my tricks. It's easy to play your old tricks with a new person, but when someone knows you, you can't. Another question for you, Shawn Dejong. This one's from Justin Shea. Is there a reason why high-ranking practitioners in your style wear a purple belt? What's the history there?
Okay, so the purple belt in Japan, the color purple is a symbol of royalty, and that was given to the Shihans of our rank. So that's been going on a lot longer than even the dojos over here in North America. And we just adopted that. So you go through your standard Q grade color belts up to black belt. You hold your black belt for 4 dans until you do your 5th and 6th degree, which becomes Shihan. And then it's purple. Does
Right
that,
on.
Sensei Suino, does that, you're over in Japan, does that kind of run true there?
Well, I think it goes back historically even further, that purple was long the color of royalty in China in some of the dynasties. And I'm pretty sure that's where Japan originally got the concept.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sorry, I missed the name of the founder of your style when you said that's who you'd like to train with the most. Do you mind taking like 1 minute, 5 minutes, however long you want, to talk about the founder, why he founded it, what was happening at the time, like what made this art emerge?
Yep. So he was so Riho Okoyama, and if I get this right, he was lived with the former samurai family, the Takeda family, and he was with them, and he trained directly under let me get the name right here. No nickname, but Sokaku Takeda. So Sokaku Takeda trained Morihei Yoshiba in his earlier years, the founder of Aikido, and then in his elderly years trained Ryo Okuyama. So there's some good similarities between some Aikido forms and our traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, but so he was quite a master of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and he developed Hakaru Jiu-Jitsu. Was also did work with Tokyo riot police and everything over his years, and he's quite a stat on the man, but had to do all this through post-World War II, and so it wouldn't have been easy.
Right on. Sensei Suino, I know that jibes a little bit with the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu you do, right? And that police influence, etc.
Yeah, for sure. Those things live in a very interesting world. Takeda Sokaku is a fascinating instructor. He gave rise, right, to ultimately to Hakko Ryu and also to Aikido and other branches, Daitoryu, Aiki Jujutsu. Just a badass. I mean, the legends about this guy are crazy. You know, there's a famous story of him going out to a construction site and getting attacked by like 100 guys. I probably have the details wrong, but he supposedly laid waste to like 100 guys. And when you see pictures of him, you can believe it. He just looks like the strongest, gnarliest, farm boy / martial artist you can imagine. He looks like there's not a gentle bone in this guy's body. The stories about him are legendary. And yet, one of the most gentle martial arts of all Japanese history, Aikido came from that lineage. Fascinating guy. And a lot of the root techniques that my teacher, Sato Shizuya Sensei, taught came from that same ilk. Very, very simple, practical, painful stuff. Yeah, it's a good tradition.
I'm just laughing at me and Sensei Dauphin nodding it. Simple, practical, painful. It has a nice ring to it.
Well, when he was talking, I was wondering if he was describing Shihan Dejong. Right? Like it sounded, if I was going to pick anybody on this call to go into a construction site and lay waste to 100 people, it'd be him or Sensei Legacy.
And now that's a movie I would like to see. I don't know what we're gonna call it, man. The Shihan and the Bringer of Pain.
Where did that come from anyway?
That was from Steve.
Oh,
That was,
that was yeah.
Kyoshi Freeze's student Steve pinning that moniker on you.
Oh, okay. I see. I thought I owed somebody a big apology.
No. Never apologize. That's a great moniker. I love that
Never
one.
apologize. We like that one. Oh, sorry. I thought never apologize was the moniker. Shawn never apologized, Benson. Shihan, we got one more question, and I think this will be around the horner. This one came in from Christiana Landl, one of our black belts. Speaking to what got you started, do you think it is achievable to look and move like your sensei, or due to the gap in experience, are you more likely to continue to chase that look or movement?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
Yeah. Stature wise, like, I mean, he was mine's Soke Lamonica was he's a big man. So
Yeah, of course, you being so tiny and small. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Read that one more time.
Oh, just do you think it's achievable to look and move like your sensei, or because there's a gap in experience, is that something you're just always chasing?
I feel like I'm always chasing it. I always feel like, yeah, I'm just, they're at the pinnacle, and I don't ever, I don't ever think that I'll be that pinnacle as forever being a student, right? So yeah, I'm sure someday maybe somebody will look at me or any of us on the panel and think that. But yeah, right now I just keep chasing it.
Right on. Sensei Dauphin?
I think a lot of that depends on who your instructor is. So I'm lucky, since Legacy and we have similar builds, similar height. So and in the beginning, I always said, like, I wasn't good at anything. I was just good at being a student. Right? So I studied Sensei Legacy. If he dropped his keys once on the way out the dojo, I dropped mine 3 or 4 times just to be sure I was doing it the same way. And yeah, there's definitely a big gap in experience and skill. So I'm still chasing it, right? Today, when it's like Hakutsuru, I'm still trying to small things, form my hand a certain way, like his hand, or make sure my feet are lined up a certain way. But I guess proudly, I will say, if you watch Sensei Legacy and I do Shorin or Hakutsuru together, you'll see 2 people doing it pretty tightly together. It's pretty tight.
Yeah.
And again, Sensei Suino is way better than me at Iaido, but if you watch us do Iaido together, when I watch tapes, we're pretty tight with our movements.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy, what about you?
You can't help but do it. When your students come into the grading, you always notice they move like their senseis. That's why it's important to be with your sensei, because you get that direct drive. You get all your senses on that person, and you subconsciously pick it up. Like I've seen Randy's students move like him, your students move like you, Scott Bowen's students move like him. I see it all the time. But if you really want to be like your sensei and you try to be like him, I don't know if you can ever do that. You can always But I think that from training with a person and you want to copy them, you automatically pick that up. I've seen
Hey,
it so
Sean.
many. Huh?
Sorry. No, I didn't mean to step on you there. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was gonna say, I got a really good compliment when I was at Sensei Legacy's house last week in his new house. And I showed him an old tape of me fighting somebody and he watched it. And at the end, he said, I can see why people say we fight the same.
Mm.
I gotta tell you, I felt feeling pretty happy that night. That was a nice bike ride home that night. That little compliment was a nice bike ride home.
Sensei Suino, if you'll pardon me for a sec, I don't want to be the last word on this. So Christiana, I just want to say one thing that I think about a lot. The way in is through trying to move like my sensei, but then there's a deeper essence I'm trying to get at. And the example I'll give is this. A lot of guys I know who are into fashion want to be like Steve McQueen. So they'll buy a vintage Porsche like the one Steve McQueen drove, and they'll buy a vintage Rolex like the one he wore. But Steve McQueen was buying the newest Porsche he could. And he was buying the newest Rolex he could. So if you wanted to be like Steve McQueen, you'd buy a brand new car and you'd buy a brand new watch. And I always thought that was an interesting revelation, is like, if you want to be like him for a bit, that makes a lot of sense. But at a certain point, there's something deeper that he was doing. And I hope we get to see that with our teachers and go, oh, okay, the moving like them, great. But eventually there's something going on that has nothing to do with that. And it's an operating system. And that operating system is where it gets really exciting.
That's a good point, Sean. So if you just didn't go to one sensei for all those years, how would you get that? You wouldn't. That's why you have classical martial arts and other guys.
I just got goosebumps. Suino?
Here's where it could go sideways. So, in our Iaido, we have a very particular kind of cut. We get our wrist work done first and we finish with the arms. And I had a student many years back who had done kendo for a decade or so before he came to me. And he really struggled to not do the kendo cut, which is, you do the arms and then you finish with the wrist and shoot it. So after training with me for 5 years, he got a professorship out in the East Coast and he invited me to come out there and teach a seminar. My wife, who was on this call, was present during this, so it's kind of funny. So we walk into his dojo and his students are all training and they all stopped and looked at me because I was the visiting sensei, and they gathered around, and my student, now, former student, came up to me and he goes, "What do you think?" And I looked at all of his students and I go, "That's great. You guys all cut just like your sensei." And he knew what I was saying, and my wife knew what he was saying, and everybody else was very proud of the fact that they cut just like their sensei. But they didn't do the work that Hanchi just described, which was figuring out what the reasoning is underneath it, right, and getting it right that way.
Right on. What a great question. Shawn Dejong, what we do is we go round the horn at the end of our show. So we're all going to chat a little bit about our time with you, and then the last word will go to you. Hanchi Legacy, what do you want to say about our time?
No, it's a great time. This is the most I've been involved with guys who do jiu-jitsu and ground workers like that. But I get to understand more and more. It's a pleasure seeing you again. And I really appreciate that you came on and gave us your view, and we saw your history. And you'll be helping everyone else in the future as well. Thanks so much. Hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Hanchi. Sensei Suino?
Oh, this feels kind of like a reunion to me, right? Sensei Dejong and I were in the room together not that very long ago. Shihan Scott Evans trained in Iaido with me many years ago. And there's a lot of commonalities in some of our lineages going back to the Jiu-Jitsu era and some of the sword eras that arose out of that. So it just feels like having a family, a cousin come over, sit around the fire, drink a few beers, and just, talk about the family history. I loved it, man.
Thanks, Sensei Dauphin.
Yeah, so I'm going to be with Shihan Dejong on Saturday. We're going to do some Iaido together in his great dojo. I'm excited to go there and do that with him. This has just been so much fun. I didn't realize you were the Jan Brady of your family. You're the middle. You're the middle, right? So that's something I learned about you. really cool. We all knew on day one, everybody on this call knew on the day one when they walked in the dojo that we're all going to be doing this shit. And we're going to keep doing it. I really like that you just said, like, I know Sensei Legacy strongly about this too. He talked about it, right? You've never strayed from Hakko Denshin Ryu. Like you started there, you're still doing it. That's something everybody should admire. You've just devoted yourself to that art. I'm proud of you for that. And I look up to you for that. I also like that when we ask your most effective move, like most people say a reverse punch, like the karate people, we all say, Sensei Copeland said back fist reverse punch. Sensei Legacy said reverse punch. I said reverse punch, right? You said wrist lock. One of the core things about jujitsu, right, is that just take that basic technique and that's the thing. And I'll tell you, I really want to see somebody grab a hold of your coat jacket. Like I just want to see it. And then I want to see a couple of milliseconds after that, right? Just like also like common ground, you're really excited about the next 5 years because of your students. That's the same as me. I'm really excited to see there's a little kid in here who's going to get his yellow belt soon. He's like 8. 5 years from now, he's going to be 13. I can't wait to see like, right, what he's like when he's 13. Welcome, you did good. That's very similar, right? All of us feel if there is a God, we just want him to feel like we had a purpose on this earth that was a good purpose and we help people. Being disciplined and confidence, great benefits for people. You're definitely a disciplined brother and you're definitely a confident dude. I'm happy to walk into any room with you, especially behind you, right? Like that's, you said something that I know it resonates with Sensei Shawn. Find a good instructor, focus on that art.
Yep.
Have good basics, right? Listen, if you don't like Shihan Dejong, I'm not going to get along with you probably. So don't tell me I'm not going to get along with you. So I'm super proud to have you on here, man. And thank you for coming on with us. Yeah.
Thank you guys for doing this. I'll be honest, I didn't stumble across this the podcast for quite some time, and now that I'm watching them, I'm going way back to the archives and I'm playing them all back when I'm at work and listen to them. So yeah, it's really awesome, and thank you guys for doing what you do. We're all trying to keep the martial arts going and keeping the purity in it, and appreciate it big time. Yeah.
John, it's a real pleasure to have you here. And I just want to add what a great hang this is. The whole point of this show is, I think, what we did tonight, which is hang. Interview aspect, we love it. But the hang aspect, I think we love more. And this just felt like 5 dudes hanging around, talking about the thing we love. And, if you're listening, you obviously love this too. And I know you felt that hang with us. So thanks, Shihan. And I'm going to throw it to Sensei Dauphin to tell us what's coming up.
I'm going to talk about that. But before I do, I just want to talk about ZT for a second. Love that girl. I was just in Michigan on the weekend. Saw her from across the parking lot, asked her to come in. Sensei Shawn forced her to come into one of my karate classes, and she did. She had a good time, I think. And then we also did some grappling. She choked me out one time. So ZT, I'm so proud to have spent the weekend with you, lady. And I look forward to more. And thanks for asking such good questions. It's really good to have an engaged audience. You make the show better when you do that. What's coming up, Shawn? We have on Thursday, June 1st, right? We're going to drop an episode about firearms with Lee Masters. So the Masters were on our show before. If you're going through the archives, you can go find it. But we talked about firearms with Shihan Masters. Then we're going to do a host chat on June 8th. Then on June 15th, Ben Beater. And then on June 22nd, Shihan Dejong will smile. We're going to have Ryan Bodrug on, who
Nice.
Yeah, I've shared them there at his dojo as well. Great person, really good martial artist. And then Jamie Mancini, no relation to KPM, But yeah,
Mhm.
that's what's coming up.
Awesome. What an incredible time. I'll be here in Calgary and I'll be talking to y'all. And I'm so happy that we get to do this every week, and we'll miss you next week for the live one, but tune in for that drop. And I just want to say thanks to Mike Russell, Justin Shea, Andre Sedeshev, Robert Schlumsky, Jesse DeLay Vital, Alden Adair, Sydney Dauphin, Josh Kitchens, and Christiana Landau. This show does not exist without your help behind the scenes. Thanks for watching and tuning in, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
So everybody.